Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fly Day Fridays, the day of the week where we talk about things that fly. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Cheerson CX-12. This is a really uniquely designed little quadcopter. It looks kind of like a fighter jet, and when you look at the back of the box of all the ones that they show, it looks kind of like an F-22. I'm not really all that into planes, but I do think the design is kind of cool. Inside the box you're going to find a manual, a full set of spare props, and a USB charger. You will of course also find the little teeny tiny controller. It takes two AAA batteries, and it's pretty much the same design as a lot of the other little nano quadcopters. And then you'll find the plane itself, and essentially it's a nano quadcopter that's been turned at a 45-degree angle. So instead of having the two motors in front, two motors in the rear, you have one in the front, one in the rear, one at the left, one at the right. When you turn it on, you'll notice that there are LEDs on the motor pods. There's red in the front and back, blue on the left and right. They're not extremely bright, but they do all right indoors. On the bottom, you can't exactly see it, but it has a built-in 3.7 volt, 100 milliamp hour battery. And that battery is going to get you about 3.5 minutes of flight time. I noticed the LVC warning came on at about 3 minutes, maybe 3 minutes 15 seconds, and I saw it last about 3.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes 45 seconds at the longest. After you have the quadcopter turned on, you turn the controller on, you bind it by moving the left stick up and down, and at that point you're ready to fly. Now in terms of how this thing flies, it has an extremely slow yaw rate. At the same time, this is intended to look like a plane. It's intended to kind of perform like a plane, so you're not going to expect a plane to go spinning out of control when you hit left or right. It also doesn't have a whole lot of pitch or roll, so when you push forward, backward, left, and right, it'll move, but it won't move extremely fast. It does have 3 rates through the controller, but those 3 rates don't appear to really do anything. I've tried all 3 of them. I think there's ever so slightly more pitch in the higher rates, but it's not really enough to be noticeable. And I really think that it's the plus-shaped design that's hurting it a lot, because normally you'd have 2 motors in the front and 2 motors in the rear helping to push it in one direction or another, but with this one you've only got 1 motor in any given direction, and that's probably hurting it just a little bit. So when you combine this low yaw rate and not a whole lot of pitch, I would say this is definitely not an outdoor flyer. I have taken it outside several times now when there was very, very little wind, and it was able to survive just barely. Whenever the breeze would kick up any at all, and I'm talking more breeze than just the amount of air I'm putting out by talking, it would get blown backwards and it could not fight the wind. There were times I took it out and I tried to fly it and I couldn't even feel wind blowing, but it would start moving backwards. I tried adjusting the trim. I gave it so much forward trim that it would kind of stay in place, but then it would just almost immediately start going backwards. So realistically, indoors is the way you're going to want to fly this thing. This can also do flips just like you do with most traditional quadcopters, but instead of doing forward, back, left, and right, it can do left and right, and it looks like the plane is actually rolling over to the left or the right. But when you try to do forward or back flips, because it's designed like a plane, they always do back flips because a plane can't really do a forward flip. So if you can get a little bit of momentum built up and then tell it to do a left or a right flip, it's going to look like the plane's doing a barrel roll. That's very cool. And if you've got that little bit of momentum and you tell it to do a front or a back flip, it's going to do a loop. The one thing to mention here is, before it does any flip, it gives itself a ridiculous amount of throttle, so make sure that you've got high enough ceilings or you're going to hit a ceiling. If you end up doing this outside, make sure you're not too close under a tree limb or something, because like I said, it's going to give itself a decent amount of throttle before it does that flip, so you don't want to end up in a tree. Now, one of the first things that I said to myself whenever I saw this thing come in the mail was, that canopy's removable, maybe it'll fly a little bit better without the canopy on it. It does have 2 screws at the top, you can take the canopy off pretty easily, but it didn't make a whole lot of difference. The only time I really noticed a difference with it was when I tried to do flips, and then it was just that it went completely out of control because it was trying to compensate for having this foam on there and it didn't have it anymore. So it was still able to do the flips, especially when I took it outdoors, but there were a couple of times I managed to get it to do double flips because it was trying so hard to compensate for all that foam that wasn't there anymore. But even without all of this foam on it, it still really didn't have much in terms of pitch, and the yaw rate of course didn't change at all. So it was still kind of difficult to fly, not something I would take outdoors. If you're just flying it around inside a room, it can be a lot of fun, and I can imagine if you are a fan of fighter jets, especially now that I see here on the back it says F-22, especially the F-22 fighter jet, or any of the ones they mention on the packaging, this might be an excellent pickup for you. It has a reasonably low price. I'll have a link to where you can pick it up over on GearBest down in the video description. Again, thanks so much to GearBest for sending this out to me for a review. Thanks so much to you guys for watching. Remember to hit the like button below if you like this video, subscribe to receive more videos when they become available, and I'll see you again next time.